Right, hello YouTube, how's it going? So, this is the second time recording this video, because the first time I forgot to hit record. Right, editing me cutting in real quick. I'd just like to thank Spell Squires MTG for just inspiring me to do some magic content, and helping me with the, organisation of this. Channel link in the description. Please go check it out if you enjoy this content. There's loads on there, tutorials, gameplay. Check it out. So first of all, this is a deck tech on Meren, clan Toth. So this commander reads: whenever another creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. At the beginning of your end step, choose target creature card from your graveyard. If that card's converted mana cost is less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, return it to the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. So this deck is all about playing Recursion, sacking creatures, bringing them back, getting end to the battlefield effects, just all round, just getting loads of experience counters and playing loads of end to the battlefield effects and taking advantage of that. So I am going to start us off with the first category, the most boring category out of them all. And this category is lands. So, in this deck we have 12 swamps, we have then 13 forests, and then we have an exotic orchard, a Golgari, Gilgate, Paducah Bog, Temple of whatever, it's a temple, it's a scryland, Golgari Rot Farm, Maya, Landwild Waste, Jungle Hollow, and Temple of the False Gods. Okay, so basically this is just a simple mana base for a Golgari deck. Okay, we'll move on to ramp. So, we have quite a lot in the ramp section. So we have Primal Druid. This, we can sacrifice it to a sack outlet and play a land, put a land into play. And we can keep recurring that with Meren, getting loads of lands into play, sacking it, etc, etc. From Beyond, at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 Eldrazi Scion creature token, which sacrifices it, add 1 mana to your mana pool. This is good because A, it gives us experience counters and also gives us a bit of ramp. We have Search for Tomorrow, which is a suspend 2 cost of 1, which means we can pay 1 mana to get a basic land card, put it onto that field, then shuffle our library. It's good ramp, and it will come out, if you play it turn 1, it will come out turn 3, and you can always pay it for its actual mana cost. We have Arcane Signet, which is quite a classic in Commander. It's used quite frequently. It's in most of my decks because it's just good ramp. Farhaven Elf, which we can recur with Meren over and over again, finding us loads of basic land cards onto the battlefield. We then have Yavimaya Elder. Now this can draw us a card from sacking it and give us an experience counter, so it's its own sack outlet. It sacrifices itself so you can draw a card from it, and then when it dies you can search your library for 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand and shuffle your library. So this we can keep recurring it again with Meren to get us loads of lands. We have Solemn Simulacrum, which when it enters the battlefield we create a land, we put a land into the battlefield tapped. So this basically, we can recur this with Meren, we can sacrifice it, draw a card, recur it with Meren, get loads of lands onto the battlefield. We have Farseek, which is just add a, basically for this deck it's put a swamp into the battlefield tapped and shuffle your library. We have Croatian Wayfinder, which again we can recur in Meren, put in loads of lands onto the battlefield. We have Rampant Excavator, which is you may put lands from your you may play lands from your graveyard. So where we're going to have a lot of cards in graveyard, we can play lands from it with this. We then have Rampant Growth. Search library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tap, and shuffle your library. Just gets us a land into play. Explore, we can play an additional land and we draw a card. Gets us a land into play. Cultivate, we put a land into our hand and a land into play. Sakura Tribe Elder, much like Solemn Simulacrum and Farhaven Elf, we can put several lands into play. And then we last have Sol Ring, which is a commander staple. Taps for 2 mana, 1 mana, mana rock. It's very good. Let's move on to Synergistic Creatures. So, we have Verdant Sun's Avatar. This basically, when creatures enter the battlefield, we gain life to its toughness. So, we have a lot of token generators in this deck, so we're going to get a lot of life using this creature. Grim Haruspex. Whenever a creature dies, we draw a card. This is really good because we're probably going to sacrifice a lot of creatures. So we're going to be drawing a lot of cards, and we can play those creatures again using our commander's ability. We have Sir Conrad, which takes advantage of our cards, so we deal damage to opponents, when creatures die. We deal damage to opponents when creatures come out of the graveyard. And we can also mill everyone. We have Mere Battlesphere, which is one of those token generators that I was talking about. So we create some Mere, and we can sacrifice it, bring it back, create Mere, sacrifice it, bring it back with other sack outlets that we have. So we can build up a large amount of Mere and attack and kill someone very quickly with it. Also, if we do have Verdant Sun's Avatar on the battlefield, we gain a lot of life. Fleshbag This geezer. Fleshbag Marauder. When it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature. So basically, we play it, everyone sacrifices a creature, we sacrifice Fleshbag Marauder, end step we bring it back, everyone sacrifices a creature, we sacrifice Fleshbag Marauder, next turn sacrifice, you get it, everything dies basically. We can kill a lot of creatures with it. Vindictive Vampire. When another creature you control dies, it deals 1 damage to an opponent, and we gain life. So this gains us life and deals damage to opponents, always good. We have Thragtusk, which gains us 5 life and creates beasts. Using Meren's ability, we can create loads of beasts and gain loads of life. Fierce Empath, which when it enters the battlefield, we can tutor for a creature with a converted mana cost. Just like to add, this deck list is subject to change, and I did cut Fierce Empath for Big Game Hunter. So if you check the deck list in the description, it looks a bit different. That's why. Which will gain us a lot of life and harm opponents quite a lot, and we keep gaining that life. Mycloth. When this enters the battlefield, we sacrifice any number of creatures and add twice that amount of +1/+1 counters on it. So basically, and then we create more creatures. So this is good for sacrificing stuff because it generates tokens, and it can get quite big. We also have Plaguecrafter, which we can sacrifice creatures, planeswalkers, and each player who can't discards a card. So much like right. So next up we have Plaguecrafter. This is when it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a planeswalker or creature they control. If they can't, they discard a card. This is very similar to Fleshbag Marauder, so we just do the same thing. We have Deep Forest Hermit, which is one of those token generators that I was talking to you about earlier. So we can generate a lot of squirrels, and we can bring it back, generate more squirrels, so we get loads and loads of squirrels from it. We now have Gonti, Lord of Luxury. This basically allows us to steal cards off opponents' libraries, and then we can hopefully get some big threats off that and play them, and that could hopefully help with our deck. Sometimes it doesn't, but it's just a fun card. We also have Rotting Regisaur, which can fill our graveyard, and it's also a 7/6 for 3 mana, so it's got quite a few bonuses. We then, lastly in this category, we have Avenger of Zendikar, which we create loads of plants. We kill it, we create loads more plants. You see how it's going. We create loads and loads and loads of plants, and we put +1s on them, and we either attack with them, we sack them, we'll deal damage to people through sacking them. There's loads of stuff we can do. This is a very good card in this deck. Right, next up we have Sacrifice Outlets. So these are cards that we can use to sacrifice some of our own creatures to get those benefits that I was talking about. So we have Smothering Abomination, which at the beginning of your upkeep you sacrifice a creature. When you sacrifice a creature, draw a card. So this is a bit of card draw. It's a 4/3 flyer, but we're mostly going to use it to sacrifice creatures and draw cards. We then have Carrion Feeder, which can't be blocked. I sacrifice a creature, put a +1 on it, and yeah, it's mostly used for sacrificing creatures, getting those benefits, putting +1s on it. It can't block, so you don't really hold it back to block. You just sort of attack with it. If it dies, you bring it back with Meren. It's quite a good card in this deck. We then have Ashdod's Altar, which works as ramp because we can sacrifice creatures. Then we can add 2 mana to our mana pool. So this is really useful in the deck. We then, lastly, in Sacrifice Outlet, we have Altar of Dementia, which mills opponents or us. We can mill us to find big creatures that we want to put onto the board using Meren, or we can mill out opponents. Let's say we use Avenger of Zendikar and we make loads of plants, and we can fully mill out an opponent. This is a very good card in the deck as well. I forgot to mention what its category is creatures and stuff that benefits from other stuff dying. So we have Bone Horde, which it gives a quick creature plus X, where X is number of creatures in all graveyards. So this can get very big in this type of deck, in this graveyard deck, and we can swing in for a lot of damage with this, and it can potentially kill someone. We then have Open the Graves, which when a non-token creature you control dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. This basically benefits us from dying. So after a board wipe, for example, we'll still have board presence, which is really useful. We have Catacomb Shifter, which adds a 1/1 Eldrazi, which is a bit of ramp, but the main focus on this card is scry 1. So when a creature dies, so we sacrifice creatures and we can filter through our deck for creatures that we want to look for. We have Mazarek Cruel Death Priest. So whenever a player sacrifices another permanent, put a +1 counter on creatures you control. We can make some of our creatures very big, and we can swing out for a lot of damage, especially as we're sacrificing a lot of stuff. We have Grismold. Now this can create stuff to sacrifice, and then when stuff dies, it can get quite big, and it's also got Trample, so it's so we can swing in for some damage with this. And then lastly we have Gutter Grime, which when non-token creatures we control die, we put a slime counter on it and create an ooze that has the power and toughness of those the ooze counters on it. Category, we have Targeted Removal. So in this category we have Acidic Slime, which can destroy lands, artifacts, enchantments. We can keep recurring that, destroying a lot of stuff. Then we have Bone Splinters, which sacrifices a creature and we destroy another creature. Good in this deck because we can bring that creature back. Thrashing Brontodon, we can destroy artifacts, enchantments, then bring it back. It has 1 mana cost to do this, and it sacrifices itself, so we don't need a sacrifice outlet to use this. We have Reclamation Sage, which when it enters the battlefield we can destroy artifacts or enchantment. Again, we can keep recurring this and destroying artifacts and enchantments. Beast Within, we destroy a targeted permanent and we give a 3/3 beast to whatever permanent we destroy. So this is big threats we can remove with this. Eat to Extinction. Now this exiles creature or planeswalker, but also we can fill our graveyard with it, so it's quite good in this deck. And lastly in this category we have Overseer of the Damned, which destroys target creature, and when a creature an opponent controls dies we create a zombie token, so it adds more to the sacrifice outlet. We can also keep recurring this, destroying more and more creatures. Okay, next category we have Card Draw. So in this category it's all about drawing us cards. So Village Rite, again, we sacrifice a creature, we get an experience counter, we get the creature back, and we also draw 2 cards off Village Rites. Death Ritual, at the beginning of each end step, if a creature died, you may draw a card. It's mostly like, it doesn't matter if creatures die because we can bring it back, so we can always sacrifice a creature to a sack outlet, then bring it back. A creature still died this turn, so we'll draw a card off that most turns. Liliana Standard Bearer, this is really good after a board wipe because it's flash and we're drawing X creatures. When a board wipe is done, all our creatures die, we get those experience counters, then we can play Liliana Standard Bearer and we can draw quite a few cards off this. Momentous Fall, this gains us life and draws us cards. You could draw a lot of cards off this if we were to sacrifice something like Avenger of Zendikar, for example. We gain a lot of life and draw a lot of cards off it, and then we could just bring that creature back at the next end step using Meren's ability. Next we have Harmonise, which is quite simply 4 mana, draw 3 cards. And then we have Funeral Rites, which is lose 2 life, which isn't that high of a cost to pay, especially in Command where we start with 40 life. And then we could put the top 2 cards of our library in our graveyard, so we're not only drawing 2 cards, we're also filling up our graveyard with this. And then lastly in this category we have Moldavine Reclamation. When a creature you control dies, we gain 1 life and draw a card. So this is life gain and card draw. Next category, so in this category we have Recursion. So this is when maybe if we want more than 1 creature back a turn, we can recur stuff with this category. So this is Soul of Innistrad, which is 6 mana, Death Touch, 6/6, which is quite good. It's good on its own, and we can also recur stuff to the graveyard. We have Final Parting, which we can search our library for 2 cards, put 1 into the hand and the other into the graveyard. So this basically allows us to search our library for 2 cards, because we can bring that creature back. So this is very good. We have Eternal Witness, which when it enters the battlefield, I can return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Again, it's recursion, it's bringing it back, and we can recur this with Meren, and we can play this a lot, so we can get a lot of creatures back. We have Skullwinder, which is a really useful political tool, because we can help our opponents to take out maybe a larger threat, and we can also help ourselves. So it's a good tool. Skullwinder is quite good in this deck. Blood for Bones. This allows us to just return a creature to our hand. Return a creature to the graveyard, then another to our hand. So this is quite good. And then lastly in this section we have Fresh Meat. This isn't recursion. Okay, alright, there's been a bit of a mix up. This should be in the benefiting section, but it's here. I'll explain this now. Basically we create beasts for each creature that died, so we can create a lot of beasts for it. Sorry about that, that's a bit annoying. That's on my half. We filmed this video already, you see, so there's been a mix up. That's my bad, apologies for that. Right, next we're going to move on to protection. So we have Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots in this category. Basically, Hexproof and Shroud, and they're both haste providers. We can protect Meren with this, and other big creatures, so it's harder for our opponents to stop that. They're very similar cards. Okay, next we have Board Wipes. So in this section we have Bane of the Living and Necromantic Selection. So with Necromantic Selection we destroy all creatures, then we get a creature from a graveyard. So this is very useful because we can get a board presence. Let's say we get Avenger of Zendikar, we can get more creatures than just 1 with this onto the battlefield. So it's very useful to board wipe and then get a board presence. It is quite costly, costing 7 mana. But it is still a good board wipe. Now, Bane of the Living. This is here because it's harder to counter than the average board wipe because of its morph cost. So this is quite a good card. But yeah, it's hard to counter, and you've always got to remember, with our commander, with Meren, we can bring that back because it's a creature. We can bring it back to our hand, but it's most likely just going to come to the battlefield as a 4/3. Sadly, so we can't board wipe again, but it's still a 4/3 that we bring him back at the end of our turn. Right, so essentially here I waffled a whole lot. I just started talking about this card. This is the best card in the deck. It's what named the Spell Squires gameplay series. So this card is Spore Frog. Basically, it's a 1 mana 1/1 that you sacrifice it to prevent all damage. So it's a fog effect, and with Meren this can be repeated over and over and over again. So it can drag out games for quite a long while. And if you watch one of the first episodes of the first episode actually of Spore Frog Shenanigans over on the Spell Squires channel, you'll see it in use. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this is useful. Deck list in the description. Have a great day. Peace.